I didn't come out here to be found. I came to disappear. My name is Leah Walker. I'm 36, burned out, broken up, and officially out of excuses. 3 weeks ago, I locked the door to my apartment, slid the key under the mat, and left. Behind everything that was supposed to make me happy. The job, the relationship, the city skyline. All of it. I told no one. No forwarding address. Just silence. The cabin belonged to my aunt, the only person who ever truly understood me. She died last winter. Cancer. I didn't visit. I told myself I was too busy, too exhausted, too everything. But the truth is, I didn't know how to face her. Not while my life was unraveling thread by thread, and she was fighting just to breathe. So now I'm here, in the woods, at the end of a dirt road no one drives, with a dog I didn't ask for, and a soul I barely recognize. And this morning, I woke up on the floor. Not by accident. I chose the floor. The mattress is too soft. The silence too loud. I couldn't sleep. Again. So sometime around 3:14 a.m., I pulled the blanket down and laid on the hardwood, face to ceiling, breath to darkness, heart to nowhere. And that's when he came. Tucker. He padded across the room like a shadow. No collar, no tags, just thick fur and dark eyes that didn't blink. He stared at me, then did something I didn't expect. He laid down, right on top of me. I didn't move. Not because I was afraid, but because I didn't want him to stop. His weight wasn't crushing. It was grounding. Like being buried beneath something real. Something warm. And for the first time in weeks, my mind didn't race. I didn't feel like I had to run or scream or fix anything. I just lay there with him on top of me, and I let the world fall away. I hadn't known Tucker was still here. After Aunt Marlene passed, the neighbor across the lake, some guy named Roy, said he'd take care of the dog. Old Mutt's been around long. Enough, he'd muttered, voice thick like molasses. Knows how to take care of himself. But apparently Tucker had other plans. He showed up the second night I was here. No bark, no drama, just sat at the edge of the porch, watching me through the screen like he was waiting for me to remember something. I almost didn't open the door. Then I did. He walked in without hesitation, did a full sweep of the house, circled the couch twice, and laid down with a grunt like he'd just claimed the space for us both. I didn't argue, maybe because part of me was relieved to not be completely alone. The cabin is small. 1 bedroom, 1 bath, a kitchen with uneven floorboards and a fireplace that still smells like pine smoke. There's no cell signal, no Wi-Fi, just books, old blankets, wind in the trees. And now, Tucker. He follows me everywhere. If I go outside, he trots behind me. If I sit, he lays. If I cry, and I do, often, he rests his head in my lap and doesn't flinch. But this morning, something changed. Because when I woke up on the floor, curled into a ball, my cheek pressed to the cool wood, heartbeat fragile, Tucker did more than just lie near me. He climbed on top of me. First a paw, then a shoulder, then all of him. And I let him, because I didn't want to be alone in my own body anymore. Because I was so tired of getting up only to collapse all over again. Hours passed. Maybe more. He never moved. Neither did I. I must have dozed off, because the next thing I remember is the sound of birds outside, sharp and sudden, breaking the quiet like glass. Sunlight poured through the window, painting golden shapes across the floor. Tucker shifted, stretched, and then, gently, rolled off me. I sat up slowly, every joint stiff, every thought half-formed. I should have felt ridiculous. But I didn't. I felt safe, held, still. I made coffee, watched the steam rise and curl. Tucker sat beside me, staring out the window like he was keeping guard over something invisible. When I finally spoke, it was barely more than a whisper. I don't know what I'm doing here. Tucker didn't look at me, but his tail thumped, just once. I laughed softly. Is that approval or pity? No answer, just breath, just presence. That afternoon I walked into the woods for the first time. Not far, just to the edge where the moss turns soft and the light shifts. I didn't bring a phone, or a journal, or anything to remind me of who I used to be. Tucker followed. At one point I sat on a log, knees pulled up, chin resting on them. He pressed his body against my legs, solid and warm. I closed my eyes, and for a while we just existed, not fixing, not fighting, just being. That night, I tried the bed again. It felt alien, wrong. So I took my pillow, my blanket, and settled back onto the floor. Tucker waited a beat, then joined me, this time lying directly across my chest like a furry paperweight, and again, I didn't want to move, didn't want to get up. Not because I couldn't, because I finally felt like it was okay not to. There's a story people tell about drowning, that your lungs don't explode all at once, that the real terror is in the moments before, when you're still kicking, still trying to surface, but the weight pulls harder. That's what my life felt like, before the cabin, before the quiet, before him. Tucker doesn't save me in any dramatic way. He doesn't bark at demons or drag me out of danger. He does something harder. He stays. When I lie down on the floor because the world is too much, he lies on top of me and makes it all just enough. I didn't plan on making the floor a habit, but it happened anyway. 3 nights in a row now, I've ignored the bed and returned to that hard, imperfect strip of wood between the fireplace and the kitchen, my strange little refuge from the thoughts that stalk me when the lights go out. It's not comfortable. It creaks. My hip aches when I wake up. And yet, it feels right. Or maybe it's because I'm never alone there. Tucker doesn't just join me. He covers me. His large, warm body stretches across mine like a blanket made of breath and fur and heartbeat. Sometimes his head rests on my chest. Sometimes his paws stretch across my legs. He's heavy, but not oppressively so. Just enough to make me feel contained. Like if I stayed under him long enough, I'd stop floating. The 4th morning, I opened my eyes before the birds started. The room was still, dim, gray with early fog. I shifted slightly, careful not to wake Tucker. But he was already awake. I felt it before I saw it. His head lifting, his ear twitching. Then he looked down at me, his dark eyes searching mine like he was checking for cracks. "I'm okay," I whispered. He didn't move. So I added, "I think," and he laid his head back down. There's something unnerving about being watched so closely, especially when it's wordless, constant. But with Tucker, it never feels invasive. It feels like being witnessed. Not for what I do or what I accomplish, but simply for existing, for breathing in and out, for standing still. He doesn't want me to perform. He just wants me to be. Around midday, I took a walk deeper into the woods. Tucker followed at a steady pace, never too close, never too far. I passed the broken fence line at the edge of the old orchard, where twisted apple trees still dropped fruit onto wild grass, and paused at the overgrown path that led to the lake. Aunt Marlene used to take me there as a kid. We'd sit on the flat stones and throw breadcrumbs to the ducks, our ankles dangling in the water. She called it the forgetting place. Back then, I thought she meant we were supposed to forget our worries. Now I wonder if she meant we were supposed to forget ourselves, just enough to remember who we really were. I sat by the shore and closed my eyes. Tucker lay beside me, shoulder to thigh, warm and steady. We stayed like that for an hour, maybe more. And in that silence, I realized something that made my throat tighten. I hadn't checked my phone in 6 days. Later, back at the cabin, I tried to be productive. I pulled out my sketch pad, sharpened a pencil, sat at the table with my knees drawn up and stared at the blank page like it was a dare. I used to love drawing, used to need it, the act of shaping something from nothing. But somewhere between client deadlines and product launches and scrolling social feeds, I'd forgotten why I even started. Now, the page looked enormous, terrifying. Tucker lay across the room, watching me. "I don't know what to draw," I said aloud. He didn't move. Everything inside me feels stuck. Still nothing. I laughed bitterly. "You're a terrible therapist." And yet, he stayed. That night, I stayed on the floor again. I didn't even try the bed. I rolled out my blanket beside the cold fireplace and lay on my back, staring up at the ceiling. This time, Tucker didn't wait. He walked straight over, circled once, then lowered himself onto me, carefully, like he knew where the weight needed to land. His chest pressed into mine, his head tucked beneath my chin. One paw landed just above my heart. I should have felt smothered. But instead, I felt anchored. Tears filled my eyes without warning. "I'm so tired," I whispered. Tucker didn't move. "I'm so tired of pretending I'm okay." I reached up and ran my fingers through his thick fur. He exhaled a long, deep breath and didn't leave. The next morning, something strange happened. Didn't rush, not out of bed, not into a to-do list, not into guilt. I just lay there, beneath the gentle weight of a dog who refused to let me run from myself. And for once, I didn't want to get up. I didn't want to break the spell. Later that afternoon, I found a letter in the drawer of the sideboard, handwritten, sealed, dusty. It was addressed to me, Aunt Marlene's writing. I sat at the kitchen table, Tucker beside me, his chin resting on my foot as I unfolded the paper. "Leah, if you're reading this, then you've come back. I hope it's not out of pain, but knowing you, it probably is. That's okay. The world breaks us all eventually. This place is yours now. So is Tucker. He stayed after I got sick. Wouldn't leave, even when I told him to. That's his gift. He doesn't let go. You'll fight that at first. But I hope one day you'll let him lie on top of you and keep you from floating away. And I hope you realize the weight you feel isn't meant to crush you. It's meant to bring you back to earth. I love you. Marlene." My fingers trembled as I folded the letter. Tucker sat up, moved closer, and without asking, without waiting, he laid down across my legs. I let him, and I wept. It's strange, the things that hold us down. Deadlines, expectations, guilt, noise. But sometimes, if we're lucky, we find a different kind of weight, the kind that grounds us, that keeps us from floating off into our own storms. That reminds us we're real. We're here. We're still breathing. Tucker is that weight, and every time I lie down, he comes to press against me, saying with no words, "You're not going anywhere. Not yet. Not until you're whole again." It started with a dream. Not the kind you forget when you wake up. the kind that follows you through the day, heavy as fog. In the dream, I was drowning, but the water wasn't cold. It was thick, like syrup, filling my mouth, my lungs, my thoughts. I tried to scream, but nothing came. I kicked, but I wasn't moving. I looked up through murky light and saw a face, my own, staring down at me from above the surface, calm and unmoved. Then something heavy landed on my chest. At first, I panicked. I gasped, eyes snapping open. But I wasn't in water. Was in the cabin, on the floor, with Tucker lying across me. Again. His body was stretched from my ribs to my knees, warm and solid, his weight pressing me down into the earth, like an anchor dropped on a drifting boat. And I froze. Not in fear, in recognition. The pressure that had terrified me in the dream. It was gone now, replaced by this presence. This comfort. The light was pale, early dawn. Outside, a thin rain tapped against the roof like fingers drumming. I could see Tucker's breath puffing gently against my collarbone. His eyes were half closed, but alert. He'd come again in the middle of the night, and I hadn't even heard him. I shifted beneath him, trying to rise. His paw moved instinctively to my shoulder, pinning me with just enough force to say, "Not yet." I laughed softly. "You're unbelievable." His ear twitched. His tail didn't move. "I have to get up, you know." He exhaled, loudly. "I do. I have things to—" I stopped. My voice cracked. Because the truth was I didn't. I didn't have anything I had to do. There were no meetings, no phone calls, no unread emails piling up like accusations. There was just me, and this dog, and the silence we both carried like a second skin. "I dreamed I was drowning," I whispered. Tucker shifted, his body, tensing like he understood more than he should. I used to feel like that all the time, in the city, in my job, even when I was with someone. Especially then. I blinked, trying to hold back the sting behind my eyes. He said I was too quiet, too intense, that I felt too much. Tucker's head rested gently on my chest, over my heart. He didn't want me to feel. Just to keep going, keep pushing, keep pretending. The room was still. My voice was barely audible now. "I can't do that anymore." And then, as if to answer, Tucker moved. Not away. Up. He shifted his entire body forward and laid his chest directly on mine, pinning me flat to the floor. His weight was heavy, real, complete. And I felt something inside me break, not like glass, like a fever, like a silence that had been building for far too long. I started to cry. Not a few tears. Full, aching sobs. My arms wrapped around him instinctively, as if I'd known all along this would happen. That eventually, I'd have to break open and let it all pour out. And he stayed. He didn't lift his head. Didn't move. His paw, he held me down, not to hurt me, but to hold me together. Minutes passed. Maybe more. The storm in me quieted. My body went limp. My breath slowed. And still, he didn't move. I closed my eyes, tears cooling on my cheeks, and whispered, "Don't go." He didn't. Later, when the light turned golden and soft, he finally stood, stretched, gave a great shake that ruffled his thick coat. Then he walked to the window, tail swishing lazily. I sat up slowly, blinking into the morning. My chest felt hollow, but in a clean, light way, like something had been scooped out, scrubbed, and left open to the sun. I made tea, sat on the porch, let the steam rise and warm my face. Tucker lay at my feet, chin resting on the wood. We watched the rain fade into mist. For the first time, I didn't feel guilty for being still. I didn't feel ashamed for not doing. I just breathed. And it was enough. Later that day, I found an old photo album on the shelf in the living room. Faded green leather. Dusty. Pages yellowed with time. I flipped it open and there they were. Aunt Marlene. Me, age 6. Holding a puppy. Tucker. His ears were too big for his head. His paws were comically oversized. And yet, those eyes, they were the same. Dark. Deep. Watchful. I traced a finger over the image. "He's always done this," I murmured. Tucker, lying beside me, didn't react. But I knew he felt the shift. He held her down too, didn't he? When she got sick? When she was afraid? I looked at him. He blinked slowly, and I felt the answer settle into my bones like a whisper. Yes. That night, I lit a fire. Not for heat. For light. For ritual. I laid down on the floor again. No hesitation this time. Tucker came almost instantly. As if summoned by breath alone. He circled once, then lowered himself gently across my body. Chest to knees, his weight warm and constant. And I smiled. Because I didn't want to get up. Not anymore. Not when stillness felt like safety. Not when his weight reminded me I was here. I was seen. I was enough. Some people say dogs don't understand emotions. That they're just animals, acting on instinct. But I know that's not true. Tucker knows. He feels. He listens in a way no human ever did. He doesn't flinch when I cry. Doesn't turn away when I go silent. He doesn't try to fix me. He just stays. And when I lie down, raw, vulnerable, stripped of all performance, he climbs on top of me and holds me there until the storm passes. That night, as I drifted into sleep beneath his familiar weight, I whispered into the dark. I'm not ready to stand yet. And in the asak, quiet that followed, I felt him breathe. And I knew. That's okay. The air had changed. It was subtle at first, sharper in the mornings, a crispness that bit at my skin even under layers. The rain had stopped days ago, but the wind now carried a different kind of tension, like the trees were whispering, warning of something coming. Tucker felt it too. He stayed closer to me than usual. When I walked the perimeter of the property, he didn't trail behind like before. He walked beside me, shoulder to thigh, like a silent escort. Even when I entered the orchard, the place he normally gave me space, he stayed tight at my side, ears up, alert. I didn't question it. Not at first. The cabin had become something sacred. Our ritual, mine and Tucker's, was no longer an accident. I didn't just collapse onto the floor at night from exhaustion. I chose it. Rolled out a blanket, lit a candle, waited for him to come to me. And he always did. It wasn't just comfort anymore. It was trust. And I was learning to let myself be held. But everything changed on the 7th night. It started with the knock. A sharp, 3-rap knock on the front door that cut through the stillness like an axe. I froze. Tucker stood instantly. His body blocked mine before I could even sit up. His tail was low. His ears pinned back. A low growl rolled from his chest like a distant engine. No one was supposed to be here. Not now. Not ever. I reached for my phone, only to remember again that I'd turned it off 2 weeks ago and shoved it into a drawer like it was a poison I no longer needed. Another knock. Louder this time. I crept to the window, peered through the cracked blind. There was a man on the porch, tall, hooded, jeans damp with mud. He wasn't trying to look innocent. He was trying to look invisible. But I saw him, and more importantly, Tucker smelled him. I placed a hand on Tucker's back. He was vibrating with tension. "Easy," I whispered. "Please don't do anything stupid." Not that I didn't trust him. I did. But the man, he felt wrong. "Off." I opened the door just a few inches, the chain still latched. "Can I help you?" I asked, voice tight. The man stepped back slightly. His face was half hidden in the shadow of his hood. "I'm looking for Roy," he said. "Roy who?" "Roy Blake. I heard he's got dogs. I was hoping to buy." My blood ran cold. Roy was the neighbor across the lake, the one who was supposed to have taken Tucker before I arrived. But Roy didn't have Tucker. I did. The man's eyes flicked, passed me into the cabin. I stepped forward, blocking his view. "He's not here." "You sure?" he asked. Tucker growled again, louder. The man glanced down, and for the first time his posture shifted, not in fear, but in calculation. He saw Tucker, and something in his expression changed, not surprise, recognition. "Nice dog," he said. "Real loyal type. Please leave." He raised his hands. "Sure. Just asking around. No harm." But I didn't move until he turned and walked back to the road. And even then, I stood at the door for 10 full minutes before I let the chain drop. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay on the floor like always. But this time, I didn't feel safe. Tucker climbed on top of me, slow, deliberate, and settled with his chest over mine, just like he always did. But he didn't sleep. Neither did I. Morning came gray and silent. No birdsong, no wind. Just a fog so thick it blurred the trees into ghosts. I poured coffee with shaking hands. Tucker sat by the window, head low, eyes locked on the tree line. He hadn't barked, not once. He was waiting. Something about that terrified me more than anything. I debated leaving, packing up, driving out, going somewhere. But where would I go? Back to the city? Back to the noise and expectations and loneliness? No, not yet. Not when this place was finally teaching me how to breathe again. Not when Tucker was still trying to teach me how to stay. I spent the day reinforcing the locks, checking the windows, clearing brush from the back trail. Tucker followed me everywhere, more vigilant than ever. His tail never wagged, his body never relaxed. He didn't lie on top of me that night. He lay beside me, facing the door, and I felt it again. His silent message, his invisible wall between me and the outside world. He was choosing to protect me, and I hated that I needed it. Around 2 a.m., I woke with a start. There was movement outside. Light. Careful. Like a footstep on soft grass. Tucker was already standing, body taut, staring out the window. I crawled to my knees. My breath caught. A figure moved past the porch. Just a blur. A shadow. But it was there. I reached for the drawer beside the couch and pulled out a flashlight. Flicked it on. Tucker growled, low and deep. The figure froze. Then ran. Crashing through the woods like a deer. I flung the door open and shined the light into the darkness, heart pounding. But they were gone. Tucker didn't chase. He just stood in the doorway, solid as stone. The next day, I hiked to Roy's cabin. It was empty. A note pinned to the door said he'd gone south for the month. Family emergency. I stood there for a long time, the wind biting at my face, my breath fogging the glass as I peered through the dusty window. Tucker sat beside me, unmoving. "You knew," I said aloud. He didn't look at me. Didn't have to. When we got back to the cabin, I bolted the door, closed the blinds, sat on the floor in the center of the room and wrapped the blanket around my shoulders, and waited. It didn't take long. Tucker walked to me. He nudged my shoulder once, and then climbed on top of me. I let him. I lay down, and he covered me. Heavy, warm, real. And in that moment, despite the fear, despite the uncertainty, I felt something deeper than safety. Certainty. Because he didn't just come to protect. He came to remind me. I didn't have to get up. Not until I was ready. Not until I wanted to. The call came just before dawn. I'd forgotten I even had my phone on. The drawer it was buried in hadn't been opened in 2 weeks. But somehow, that morning, I heard it. A single vibration, long and unfamiliar, in the otherwise silent room. I stared at it. Unknown number. New York area code. I let it ring twice, more before I picked up. Hello? A brief pause. Then, Ms. Leah Walker? Yes. This is Michelle Reynolds from Hartley Design Group. We received your portfolio from one of your former colleagues. I have to say, we're very impressed. Would you be open to discussing a creative lead position for our new LA branch? I blinked. LA? It's fast-moving, high profile, a significant career step. We'd fly you out for a 3-month relocation to start. I sat back against the kitchen wall, heart thudding. She kept talking. Benefits, opportunities, timelines. But all I could think about was him. Tucker. Still lying in the middle of the room, watching me with those quiet, waiting eyes. When the call ended, I stared at my reflection in the dark window for a long time. I should have felt excited, hopeful. I felt split. That morning, I packed a bag. Mechanically, robotically. Laptop, sketchpad, a few sweaters, my old city boots. I didn't want to go, but I didn't know how to stay. What if I was using this place as an excuse to hide? What if I was failing? Again, this time, by standing still. I sat on the edge of the bed, my fingers laced, heart pounding in my throat. Tucker stood in the doorway. He didn't move, didn't blink, just watched me. I forced a smile. It's just 3 months. Nothing. I'll be back. Still nothing. I have to go, Tuck. His head tilted slightly. I stood up, and that's when he did it. He walked forward, deliberate, slow, and then he sat on my foot. Not just lightly. He planted himself, all his weight, unyielding. Tucker. He didn't move. I tried to take a step. He pressed harder. Come on, boy. Not now. He looked up at me with those eyes. Dark, unwavering, deep as a well I'd spent years avoiding. And that's when I cracked. Because I knew what he was saying. He was saying, don't go back to what broke you. I dropped the bag. Sank to the floor. And Tucker climbed into my lap. All of him. His full weight collapsed over me, chest against mine, paws tangled in my legs, breath warm against my collarbone. He held me down. And I didn't fight him. I didn't want to get up. Because I finally understood. This wasn't just about fear. It was about choice. The wind howled outside. Branches tapped the windows. The sky turned gray. But inside the cabin, I was wrapped in something stronger than any job, louder than any city. I was wrapped in him. In the dog who refused to let me leave myself. In the animal who held me until I could breathe again. Hours passed. Maybe more. Eventually I stood. This time, he let me. I walked to the kitchen, deleted the voicemail from Hartley Design Group, and turned my phone off again. For good. The next day, I wrote. Really wrote. Not for clients. For me. I sketched Tucker's face again and again, each version more alive than the last. I drew the woods, the cabin, the quiet fire. I wrote the story of the girl who lay on the floor until the dog climbed on top of her and made her whole again. And I didn't cry, not because I wasn't feeling anything, but because I finally was. Weeks passed. Spring melted into early summer. The birds returned, the fog lifted, and so did I. Not in a dramatic, movie-ending kind of way, but in the way a flower leans toward light. One morning, I took Tucker down to the lake. We sat on the flat stones, toes in the water, side by side. I looked at him and whispered, "Thank you." He didn't wag his tail. Didn't bark. He just leaned into me with that quiet pressure that had once pinned me to the ground, and now it held me upright. I could have left. I had every reason to. A career. A paycheck. A life I once thought I wanted. But I stayed. Because I didn't need to chase myself anymore. Because he came and lay across my chest when I was drowning in air, and showed me I didn't have to run just to feel real. Because he wouldn't let me get up. And in the end, I didn't want to.